Okay, Stan, go ahead.
And welcome in to PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me today in this feature, Zoom, that's brought to you by our friends at the Costas Inn out at 4100 North Point Boulevard, is John Martin, who's the director of the lottery and gaming for the state of Maryland. John's second appearance on the show. And you've got some great news for aspiring sports bettors or hardened sports bettors out there that I missed during the day. But why don't you share what's new with this sports betting in the state of Maryland?
Absolutely, Stan. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to come back. I'm now a two-timer. Does that mean I get a second jacket like the Masters?
Exactly.
Good. That's
we're
good.
We're working on that.
Good. That's good to know. Hey, we had exciting news today at our monthly Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Commission meeting. We were following up on yesterday's exciting announcement from the SWARC that yesterday announced 10 or awarded licenses to 10 mobile entities for the beginning of sports wagering. Today, we were able to take that a step further, Stan, and we actually put dates to it. So next Wednesday, the 23rd of November.
Day before Thanksgiving.
The day before Thanksgiving. There may be a few games on Thanksgiving. I don't know. I'm
busy. There's 3 pro football games on Thursday.
Yeah, that'll keep people interested, but we'll be launching on Wednesday, the 23rd. Now, the other side of that equation, though, is unfortunately, we found out in our first pass with the 10 applicants, 3 of them have informed us, have advised us that they will not be ready to launch next Wednesday. And those 3 are specifically Long Shots, the off-track betting location in Frederick, Greenmount, off-track betting location in Hampstead, and the Maryland Stadium Sub LLC, which many of your folks will know as the professional football team at FedEx Field. So that those 3 entities are not going to be ready, but as soon as they get themselves ready to go through our final stage, our controlled demonstration, we'll get them up and running as soon as we can, but it won't be by Wednesday. So the other 7 have to now go through what's called a controlled demonstration. It's a set of operational requirements to make sure they're ready to go live. And if that's the case, we haven't come up with a time yet. Well, probably announce that hopefully on Monday, Stan. So stay tuned for that. But we're ready to go on Wednesday, the 23rd. All
right. That sounds exciting for the sports bettors out there. It was very interesting, and I apologize for the phone in the background. It'll ring a couple times. It's very interesting. We had Joe Weinberg on yesterday from Live Casino Hotel, and this is, at the end of the day, is not that big a deal for each individual place. I don't mean they don't want to do it because it's important in other ways, but the bottom line of sports betting for these entities is not gigantic, is it, John?
Well, Stan, that's something that again, those of us who've been on this side understand the nuances of it and where it fits into the whole product mix, whether it be a lottery game or a casino game. You know, you look at those operations and environments, it does kind of get lost in the shuffle. But yet from the other side, from the player standpoint, it's very important, right? I mean, nothing's, if anybody knows how crazy fans can be and how excited they are about not only football, but all professional sports and college sports. So we understand the importance to the fan. We understand the importance of the referendum from November of 2020, where the people overwhelmingly said, hey, we want sports wagering. But at the end of the day, the lottery, for example, our fiscal year 21 just completed in this last year, we delivered $1.5 billion of profit to the Maryland State General Fund. At its best estimate today, fully functional a year from now, we'll deliver 20 to 25 million, not billion, million to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund. That's a big difference. It doesn't mean it's not important, but just day in and day out, people like Live Casino, Maryland Lottery, we've got a lot of products in our mix. Sports wagering will be an additional product.
Explain to the viewers out there that are watching this Zoom, what goes into this controlled trial that will take place between now and the 23rd? I imagine it's somehow like doing mock-ups of people betting and making sure the machines are calculating things correct.
And let me compare and contrast what we did last year at this time when we did open up the retail, the brick and mortar locations. Those control demos were very different, but equally important. We physically came on site to the entities who were going to start with retail in December of 2021. And we physically had to touch the equipment, look at it, see the back office operations, experience it, place wagers, open it up so people could make bets, process winning bets, all of that. And we did that over a 3-day period. Day one, did it, reviewed the accounting on day 2, came back on day 3, did it a second time, reviewed the accounting, then we were ready to go and issue the license. So it took several days and hands-on time. Compare that now to mobile applications where everything's on the phone, where you don't have a physical entity. Yeah. So it's a whole different process, but it's equally important because now you have different variables. You have geolocation, meaning you have to be within the state of Maryland. And if you don't think that's significant, I'll go back a couple months ago when the state of Kansas opened their mobile wagering. And you know very well from your world travels that Kansas City sits right on the Missouri-Kansas border.
Everybody's crossing back over.
Everybody in Missouri tried to get into the Kansas lottery system to place their wagers on the Chiefs, and thousands of people were denied access. So geofencing is very, very important to mobile applications, particularly when you're talking about a state like Maryland, where you've got wagering in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, the DC area, and Delaware. So we're surrounded by different online mobile wagering options. So there's a different level of controlled demonstration. Of course, you still have to go along and process bets, and the licensees will be reaching out to their customers because it's their responsibility to develop the customer base, if you will, to process these wagers. So that's what's going on now and over the next several days. And hopefully these demonstrations will be completed as efficiently as we can. Now with 7 entities, so that'll make it a little more efficient for us too. And we're optimistic that we'll get everything done and get everybody on board for Wednesday, the 23rd.
That geofencing issue you just brought up, I think it's something that we need to explain to people out there because I certainly don't know it. I register and I'm able to bet in the state of Maryland next week. I fly down to Sarasota for spring training in Florida. Am I still on the Maryland geofencing that I can make a bet from Florida on my Maryland account, or will I get shut out?
No, you're shut out because it will locate you in Florida. The best you can do is take your notes there at O's spring training and come back.
I love the bet spring training props.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to do that from your comfort here in Maryland, but that's the whole idea, Stan. You've correctly hit it. That's what makes the mobile wagering platform unique. You have to be within the confines of that jurisdiction.
That is really very, very fascinating. We're talking to John Martin, who is the director of the director of lottery and gaming for the state of Maryland. The 3 places you mentioned that admitted to you that they aren't quite ready, is that a good thing that they've admitted that to you rather than sort of bluff you that they were ready? Because I'm sure you're as busy as can be right now. It streamlines the number of places you got to run these tests through.
Well, it's certainly a good thing for us and a good thing for them too, because we would go through it and very quickly we find out that they're not ready to go, which would again put them back further. So by them coming forward and admitting that they're not quite ready yet, you're right, allows us to redirect our resources to do the testing we need to do, and still keeps them, reserves their place in line. If they came back to us next week, Stan, and said, okay, we're ready now, they would go right to the head of the line. We'd pick it up right there and we'd get them up and running as fast as we can. So I'm optimistic that of these 3, plus recall, we had 21 applicants when our application window closed on October 21st. So we're just talking about the first 10. We still have 11 mobile applicants that will join these 3. So we'll have, after the 7, we'll have 4. This is higher math for me. I'm sorry. Got my shoes and socks off here, and I'm
counting. It'll be like 18 or 19 places, right?
Yeah, we'll have 21 eventually. So we'll have 7 next week and 14 more to go through. And some of these that are, I would say, less known to us, they're going to take a bit longer. So they may not be up and running until after the Super Bowl, hopefully before March Madness. But some of these may take several weeks before we get them up and running.
John, we had you on, I'm guessing it was about 5 or 6 months ago, when there seemed to be some delays at getting this off the ground for the online wagering. Part of the process, as I recall, was when they did the legalized marijuana in the state of Maryland, there was an inclusion of minorities, or at the level that in hindsight they wish they had had. Do you feel that your process has been fair to everyone that wanted to be a part of this and was qualified enough to be a part of this?
Well, part of the advantage we had here, Stan, was that we had another agency, the SWARC, the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission, and they, quite frankly, were breathed into existence with the legislation back in May of 2021. But it was their role, and clearly defined, that they would bear the burden of the race and gender conscious measures, as well as the application worthiness. Our role stayed within our lane, which was the financial and criminal backgrounds, the qualification process, as we've done for 10 plus years with the casino side, and then the final issuance of the license, which again is what we've done. So by splitting it up into two camps, if you will, it actually put the burden more on them than on us. And I think, for a group of people that came together just for this cause, they did a very, very commendable job. It was a very difficult challenge, as you know, from our previous conversations. They were looking at, were there ways that they could put in place race and or gender conscious measures to help with the intent of the law, which was to get a seat at the table for minorities, small businesses, women-owned businesses. Unfortunately, the net of that was they could not put those measures in place. So then they fell back into a plan B, if you will. And that was, well, let's look at a personal net worth distinction, which is used in other agencies. And that was a provision that SWARC instituted that said, all right, if we can't do race and gender conscious measures, let's look at a personal net worth and make sure that 5% or more, but at least 5% of these entities that want to apply for mobile licenses have at least 5% makeup of personal net worth, which is $1.847 million. So no more than that. And what we found is all 10 applicants that qualified met that requirement, some of them very creatively.
Right.
But the net of it was, and I don't know if Joe got into it yesterday, probably the most creative applicants.
We did not get into that. Yeah.
Oh, the most creative application was in fact Maryland Live Casino and Hotel.
Oh,
And-
yeah, we did talk about this where the employees
Yes.
are going to participate in this. I thought that was fabulous.
It wasn't. It certainly fulfilled the obligation. It gets now, I believe they've got 91 of their associates on board. I think that's a very creative.
Very creative way to
solution.
do that. Yeah.
And we wish them well and look forward to future successes with them. But that was the kind of in-game correction, if you will, because that was not where we were 12 months ago. And it changed up, several months ago, and now it's come to fruition. And I believe we have, in working closely with SWARC, fulfilled the intent of the legislation.
Did you find in this whole process, and again, when this is all said and done, it sounds like it's going to be about 21 online licenses. Did you find that there were 50 or 70 people or entities that inquired, and when they really understood what it took, both financially and just really knowing a business so you can be successful, that there were a lot of people that backed out of interest?
Yes, absolutely. And I think again, that's a good thing. And we work very closely with SWARC and some of our other partners in education and making sure that people understood the commitment, not only the risk of being in the sports wagering business and the rise and fall, but just what the infrastructure requirements were.
It's a tremendous undertaking, and it really is it really should be handled by the big boys, for lack of a better term.
I understand that. And again, that's what made the Maryland law and the Maryland legislation so unique and so comprehensive, is that, Maryland had a chance here, and it's yet to be seen the success rate, but Maryland had a chance to do something differently, something important. And it looks like we're on that path. Now, when we talk again in 6 to 12 months, we'll see how that's working out. I mean, just today we had another, I would say, maybe Class C level of sports books, Maxim Bet, who decided, they were out. They were in Colorado, and I believe Indiana, and just could not make a go of this. And I think you're going to see more of that, Stan. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many people think they're in that sportsbook business today, but clearly you're in a consolidation and acquisition mode over the next several years, going forward on that side of the business.
John, one of the things about this, the whole discussion I find interesting is FanDuel and DraftKings, just using those two examples. 5 or 6 years ago, nobody knew they existed.
Right.
They came into being to take the bets on fantasy sports. Did they do that with an eye to this, or is this one of these just odd confluences of events that put them in the position to be this big of players in this?
Well, I think you'd have to ask them, and I think they would tell you, sure, they saw it coming. I don't know that they did, because I think, again, until the most recent and final and definitive federal rulings were on what you could and couldn't do. I mean, nobody knew that. And so they were kind of in that, you're right, sports, that fantasy sports business. But if that ruling had gone a different way, they would probably be where they are today. So it positioned them. I think, as I mentioned a minute ago, I think the challenge is they were positioned, but then when you had, 50 other companies trying to get into it, you're going to see those people peeling off one by one, evidenced by not only the announcement today, but others in recent months.
Now, in the state of Maryland, we know that the Commanders are eventually going to have something down there. Will the Orioles and the Ravens were they part of the process here?
Yeah, they were both named in the original legislation, the May 21st legislation signed by Governor Hogan. They both have been had the potential and have both initiated conversations. You may recall, and I want to say it was maybe 3 months ago, the season was still in play, that the Orioles made a press announcement, a press release,
who they were hooking up
with a partnership with a company called Superbook. Right. As their sports book operator, and the intent for them, and I don't know that it's changed any. It's their story, not mine. So maybe it has, but their express intent was to be ready for the beginning of the 2023 baseball season, and probably offer a mobile application, not a retail application. But again, that's their story to tell. That's their timeline. We have nothing further to report on that front, and when we do, when we have something, we will. But comparing that to the Ravens, who have not expressed anything along that line as well.
John, if I can ask you a couple procedural questions. First of all, I can go on when we talk about it being your device, it could be my PC, it could be my iPad or my phone or my laptop. I'm able to bet 24 hours a day, correct? There is no time limitation.
Stan, they're playing sports somewhere around the world.
Yeah.
So that's
or I can bet tomorrow's Oriole game at 2 a.m. if I want to.
Exactly.
What about cashing out if I hit a big win? Let's say I start with $500, and luckily I hit a parlay that wins me $40,000. Am I able to take that out as soon as I want, if it's my money that went in, not a bonus for signing up?
Well, I'm sure each platform has their own requirements, and I will defer to that. Again, we're the regulator in this, Stan. We're the umpire. You'd have to really, based on who you
talk
have
to individual.
Yeah, as to how they've got it set up for your wallet, as it's called, and what requirements they have. We just make sure that it's in place and it operates as it's intended. But in terms of the policies and procedures, that's up to the sports book.
Okay, John, in the remaining time I have with you, I did want to ask you. I've gotten to know a little bit about some of the people that work for the state, and some of the positions are dictated by who hired them. And then elections change that. I learned through Terry Hazeltine, Terry a long time ago was brought in by Martin O'Malley. Yeah. But early on, I said, so if he's not the governor next time, he goes, well, we're working on that. And he sort of worked out a position that made him non-political? I know the history of Maryland's a little fuzzier with that because I know one of the guys, one of your predecessors before Steve Martino, belonged to Buddy Rugal.
Right.
He existed through both Democratic and Republican governors. What is your situation now? I know Governor Hogan hired you. By all accounts, you've done a fabulous job. Governor Hogan's leaving office in a couple of months. How's that affect John Martin?
Well, I appreciate the call, and I wish I would have
Well, I'm
talked to Terry.
concerned. I'm concerned.
Well, thank you. And I wish I would have talked to Terry Hazeltine and found out how to do that. But yeah, but the director of the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency is an at-will position. I
Okay.
work at the pleasure of the governor. So at this point, I have not yet talked to Governor-elect Moore. I look forward to that. I welcome that. I'm very proud of the work we've done here. I would certainly love the opportunity to continue 4 more years and work further along on the path we've started. But at the end of the day, it's his determination as to how he sees putting his team together. And if there's anything that you want to do to put in a good word, I'll take it.
Well, consider this a good word. You've done a first-rate job in my book, John Martin. Talk about the lottery a little bit right now. Just a little different spin on this thing. We had just had a record in the Powerball of what it was 1.6 billion. No, it was closer to $2 billion. It went, how many days did it go without a winner? Like 40 some days?
Yeah, most recently, we had a run of 41 drawing dates, started on August 6th, wrapped up on 11/7, actually 11/8. And if you remember the story there, the drawing didn't go as planned on Monday night, November 7th. We had to tee it up for the next morning on Tuesday morning, the 8th. But yes, 41 drawings went from $20 million start to $2.04 billion won by one ticket in the state of California. So that winner has not yet come forward, or winners. It could be a pooled ticket. There could be multiple people who got in on that.
But nobody has come forward with that ticket.
No one's come forward yet, and the laws are different in each state. So the state of California, they have a year to come forward. So it's quite possible, but they must make themselves known. They cannot claim anonymously in California.
What the ticket in California, is there geofencing involved with that, or could he show up in Kansas or Indiana and catch that ticket?
Stan, you could have the ticket for all I know.
Trust me, I don't.
Okay.
I wouldn't be doing this show if I hadn't.
All right. But no, it was purchased. Obviously, we know where it was purchased. That lucky retailer
That is unbelievable.
got a $1 million bonus for selling a ticket, but we have no idea where that player is or if they even know they have the winning ticket.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Just in the remaining time we have, the lottery, what kind of bounce did local dollars come from a drawing such as that?
Well,
when you get a huge $1 billion plus, are a lot more people are buying tickets all around the country?
Yeah, it's the old adage, a rising tide lifts all boats. I mean, when you have something like that as focused and people over several weeks who are talking about it, and now you start to widen the sphere, right? You get people who are not your typical lottery players, but boy, they'd like a share of $2 billion. And so they're entering retail locations, they're making purchases. And while they're in store, we hope they're looking at the complete offering from Maryland Lottery. And that includes our scratch off tickets. That includes other draw games. It includes Keno and racetracks monitor games, fast play games. So we have a full complement of games that we hope people become aware of and choose to play responsibly and sample. But yes, we did well overall across the board, and having the impact now in this fiscal year. I mean, we're not even halfway there, but we've had 2 major jackpots to July, Mega Millions 1.6 billion, and the November $2 billion Powerball has put us a little bit ahead of our forecast, which is good. I will tease the second half of the year. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary, Stan. We'll be 50 years old.
I remember when I started playing, I used to play the number 714 in the daily lottery, and I never hit.
Babe Ruth.
Yeah. Well, actually, the reason I bet it was not because of Babe Ruth. My barber was at 3714 West Belvedere Avenue, and he used to play 714, and I'd go, that's Babe Ruth. And he said, no, it's my address here at West Belvedere.
He had no idea who Babe Ruth was.
He was a character. He knew who Babe Ruth was, but he didn't. Hey, the last two topics I want to talk to you about. One is, and I guess you'll tell me this would be better asked of each individual place, FanDuel, live casino, and so forth. But this preponderance of advertising that we're getting, bombarding you with different offers and all that. How long will that last? Is that something in your knowledge of how the industry works, that there will come a point 6 or 9 months from now that advertising won't be about offers, it'll be about something else other than offers?
Well, I think we're there now, Stan. You look at jurisdictions around the country, and the state of Massachusetts is debating this right now as we speak. They are planning to go live with their sports wagering, and advertising is a big part of their discussion. It wasn't a big part of our discussion. It doesn't mean we're not concerned about it, but as regulators, we have no authority to monitor that other than through our own responsible gaming initiatives and objectives that we have for our traditional lottery products. But in terms of sports wagering, at some point, we trust and hope the industry kind of self-regulates themselves. I don't know that I've seen that. My fear is if they don't, someone will regulate it for them. And I don't think anybody wants that to happen. So I think we're in kind of that no man's land right now. It'd be interesting to see how Massachusetts works it through. If they take more of a legislative oversight or regulatory oversight of it, I think then you'll see downstream of that other issues with.
Would that, if it does get legislated, would it be about the amount of dollars that can be spent, or the angle of it is not an offer?
I think it's to be determined. We can look at Europe, where some of the restrictions in place have been, for example, you cannot advertise during the event.
Okay.
Which is one thing that, to me kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but again, each industry, each jurisdiction will have their ways to handle it. I'm not close enough to what Massachusetts is really looking at. It may come back around again. I don't know. It's funny, last year with all of the hoopla that we had with the launch at the retail, I saw an interesting study at the end of the season, and that the number one advertiser in sports during the games was not sports books, it was the insurance industry.
Interesting.
And you think about all the, Patrick Mahomes, and that time Baker Mayfield, and all these guys, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I mean, every commercial seemed to be an
commercial
insurance.
was an insurance guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So while we tend to think it's sports wagering, the reality sometimes is it's a different story.
Last question I have for you. It's actually going to be two questions, but it involves the problem gambler. When I hear radio ads, an awful lot of times, they have to have a disclaimer at the end. Is there a chance that can be modified to a much shorter? It seems absolutely insulting to me as a listener that I'm driving in my car and I hear about a 20-second commercial and about a 20-second tagline that you can't understand one word of. Does that make any sense to you, John?
Well, some of it does, Stan. Unfortunately, it makes a lot of sense to me, and that is dictated by our oversight.
Okay.
So the casino partners, and you're hearing it primarily in the casino and now by extension, the sports wagering.
Right.
That is part of the mandate, if you will, from the agency to them, is they must include the responsible gaming message. We prefer that maybe it's not rushed through so that it's illegible, but
it's impossible to hear anything they really say.
Yeah.
Other than the 1-800-GAMBLER at the end.
Well, that's the best part of it.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that people know that. And again, it's for the right reasons. I mean, we fully appreciate that, especially with sports wagering. It can be a fun and engaging activity if you play responsibly, set a budget, stick to it, have a plan, know what you're doing. But we realize also for some people that it's an addictive behavior, and we want to make sure the procedures and the protections are in place.
Do you actually get a lot of people that call the 1-800 number? Are there a lot of people that do admit they have a problem with it?
I tell you what, we do get a lot of, and I don't know if it's a good story or something we want to end on. We get calls from families and friends, and
Okay.
that's what it's there for. Because again, sometimes, and it's any addictive behavior,
Yep.
it may not be the individual themselves, but when you look at the impact it has on
family.
spouses, families, that number is there for them as well. And we encourage, if you know someone, if you're a family member observing it, please call that number, 1-800-GAMBLER, and get the resources that you need for the family. Because again, we want everyone to enjoy the games, but playing responsibly.
All right, Don, I think it's a great note to end on because it is serious. The sports betting can be a lot of fun, and I think it will be for an awful lot of people. You've been very gracious with your time. If Governor-elect Moore is looking in, this is the guy to stick as the head of the Maryland Lottery.
Oh, this is going
John
to cost
Martin.
me, Stan. This is going to cost me, isn't it?
No, not immediately. Maybe down the road. John, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Stan, thank you. Look forward to doing it again. Get that third jacket.
All right, we'll do it. John Martin, Director of the Lottery and Gaming for the state of Maryland. Really appreciate it. You can sign off. I got to read a commercial from my friends at the Costas Inn, but thank you, John Martin.
Thank you,
All
Stan.
right. And we'll say, before we say goodbye, we'll just remind you that the Costas Inn is the sponsor that brings you all of these Zoom videos. The Costas Inn located 4100 North Point Boulevard. You know, during the pandemic, they stepped up their curbside pickup, as old timers call it, takeout. But the curbside pickup at the Costas Inn, you don't have to really get out of your car. You can go online, look at their menu at costasinn.com. You can order your food and pay for it online. And when you show up, just let them know you're there and they'll bring it out to your car. And as they do, every single bag that they pack is immaculately packed. You don't see spillage of you get home and you got a piece of cake and there's crab soup over it. Everything is packed precisely and, as I say, immaculately. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Hope you'll use them. Coming up Monday, Mike Bordick will join Ross Grimsley and I to talk a little baseball and some things he's working on. And we hope to have somebody on, an old friend of mine, Tom Strickler. We're working on seeing if the technology is going to work, if he can handle it. But talking about Kevin Willard and how he's doing with the announcement this past week of three really, I won't say top tier, but three really solid recruits for next year at the University of Maryland. Kevin Willard seemingly off to a really good start at the University of Maryland. Again, our thanks to John Martin, the Director of Lottery and Gaming for the state of Maryland. And we'll see you down the road.